Hello and welcome to our last live reading and analysis of William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Before we begin, I want to take a second to thank all of you who have watched these. I know that this video series is not going to get a massive amount of views. It is intentionally designed to be kind of the antithesis to the 3-minute summary on YouTube with 2 million views behind it. And I'm okay with that. I know it takes a lot more effort on the viewer's part to watch one of these, but my hope is that by watching it, you not only get a deeper understanding of the play, not just like get your homework done as fast as possible, but also that you read the entire play. So congratulations on beginning to read the entire play. And if you want to support the channel anymore, since ad revenue really doesn't cut it for these videos, I'd really appreciate any support on Patreon, where you can vote on the next video series. You do not need to be a paying subscriber on Patreon to vote for the next series. Or if you want to pick up any notebooks at fieldnotes.com. I think if you're watching this today or tomorrow, there's still a sale going on. But if you use the link in the description or the discount code in the description, it comes back to the channel as well as saves you some money. So I always appreciate that. And that is really what maintains this particular series in the channel. But without further ado, because it's a long scene today, let's dive in to 5-1, the best ending in all of Shakespeare. So it's Hippolyta and Theseus on stage right now with Philostrate and some lords around them. And they're talking about the story that the Athenians told them of what they remember from the woods. Hippolyta says, "'Tis strange, my Theseus, that these lovers speak of, more strange than true." So this is really interesting, right? He says it's more strange than it is true. So he's agreeing with Hippolyta. "I never may believe these antique fables, nor these fairy toys." So he doesn't believe what's happened. And very famous lines here. He says, "Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of," oh gosh, I messed up a famous line. Sorry. "The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination all compact." That's the problem with a famous line that you half know. You think you're going to say it the right way, and then you look and it's slightly different. You know, that Shakespearean sentence structure. So what does that famous line that I can barely say actually mean? The lunatic, someone who's crazy, someone who is in love, the lover, and then the poet, someone who writes, are all of the same type of imagination, the same type of thinking, if you will. And one of the reasons this is famous is not just because it talks about love, but because it talks about writing. And writers have long been obsessed with what Shakespeare says about writing. So if you're in a Shakespeare play and it has some sort of critique or criticism or philosophy about writing, then that's probably a line people have focused a lot on. So I guess according to Shakespeare, when you're writing a play, it's like falling in love, and both of them are like losing your mind. "One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That is the madman. The lover, all is frantic, sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. The poet's eye, in a fine frenzy rolling, doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, and his imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown. The poet's pen turns them to shapes, and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name." So we get a description of how each of these people are of the same imagination. And the lunatic and the lover have a really short description, right? The lunatic is someone who sees devils where there's not devils. The lover is someone who sees immeasurable beauty in an average person, I guess. But the really interesting one for me is the poet, which gets the longest description. And the poet is someone who can turn nothing into something. And isn't that what writers do? They create something meaningful out of nothing. "Such tricks hath strong imagination that, if it would but apprehend some joy," sticky page, "it comprehends some bringer of that joy. Or in the night, imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed a bear." Another kind of famous line. So when it's at night and it's scary outside, or you're scared because it's nighttime, you can see a bush and think that it is a bear. And who among us hasn't seen something in the distance or the corner of our eye, especially when it's darker, and mistaken it for something dangerous when it was just something ordinary? Hippolyta responds, but all the story of the night told over, and all their minds transfigured so together, more witness it than fancy's images, and grows to something of great constancy, but howsoever strange and admirable. So what she points out is that their minds all had the same transformation. They were all seeing the same stuff and experiencing the same thing. So doesn't that add credence to this vision, this imagination that Theseus dismisses? Could it not have some validity because they're all seeing the same thing? Before they can talk about that anymore, the couples enter. Here come the lovers, full of joy and mirth. Joy, gentle friends, joy and fresh days of love accompany your hearts. More than to us, wait in your royal walks, your board, your bed. Weird thing to... Okay, whatever. Basically, more joy to you than you gave to us. Come now, what masks, what dances shall we have to wear away this long age of 3 hours between our after supper and bedtime? Where's our usual manager of mirth? What revels are in hand? Is there no play to ease the anguish of a torturing hour? Call Philostrate. So Philostrate is someone who hasn't said a word yet in this play, but gets quite a few lines here. And they're in charge of keeping the king entertained, keeping Theseus entertained. And he's calling for entertainment, right? He's got a long time between the wedding that just happened and going to bed. So what are we going to do to eat up this time? And of course, because, it's Shakespeare and we're in a play, he calls for a play. So we're at the end of a play and he's calling for the beginning of one. Philostrate, coming forward, says, "Here, mighty Theseus, say what abridgment have you for this evening? What mask, what music? How shall we beguile the lazy time, if not with some delight?" So beguile means to... I'm blanking on what that exactly means here. Beguile usually means to trick, I thought, or lie to. But basically, speed up, waste away here. How shall we get past the lazy amount of time if we don't have something to keep us interested? Philostrate, giving Theseus a paper. There is a brief how many sports are ripe. Make choice of which your highness will see first. So on this list of paper is a description of all the plays that Theseus could select for the celebration. And first selection, or first option. The battle with the centaurs, to be sung by an Athenian eunuch to the harp. Will none of that. That have I told my love, and glory of my kinsman Hercules. So what we see here in this list is an optional play, usually kind of silly sounding, and then Theseus's description of it. So I love this first one because it sounds like, oh, that's like a crazy play. And he's like, I already told my wife about that one. The riot of the tipsy bacchanals, tearing the Thracian singer in their rage. That is an old device, and it was played when I from Thebes came last a conqueror. The thrice three muses mourning for the death of learning, late deceased in beggary. Oh, that is some satire, keen and critical, not sorting with a nuptial ceremony. So he dismisses all these plays. I've already told my love about that one. I've already seen that one. That one sounds really critical and serious, not really something for a wedding. And this is fascinating because we believe that Shakespeare wrote A Midsummer Night's Dream as a gift to someone for their wedding. Well, he was probably paid for it. But basically, a wedding is what inspired this play. We think. We're not entirely sure. But it's a good possibility. A wedding that was performed out in the countryside. So it would have been around the trees and all that, which is really interesting to think about. So here we have all these plays being selected for the wedding. And he gets to the last option, which is a tedious brief scene of young Pyramus and his love Thisbe, very tragical mirth. Merry and tragical, tedious and brief, that is hot ice and wondrous strange snow. How shall we find the concord of this discord? So what Theseus is pointing out is the description of this play is oxymoronic, right? Tedious and brief are opposites. Merry and tragical, happy and sad. So that's why he calls it hot ice and wondrous strange snow. So wondrous and strange, hot and ice. And then the concord of this discord, which would be opposite words, right? Concord, like harmony, bringing together, discord, tearing something apart. Doesn't sound, great musically. So he's fascinated by how bad of a description this is, or at least intriguing. But Philostrate speaks up and says, "A play there is, my lord, some 10 words long, which is as brief as I have known a play. But by 10 words, my lord, it is too long, which makes it tedious. For in all the play there is not one word apt, one player fitted, and tragical, my noble lord, it is. For Pyramus thereon doth kill himself, which, when I saw rehearsed, I must confess, made mine eyes water, but more merry tears the passion of loud laughter never shed." So Philostrate explains the description. He says, it's a really short play. It's only like 10 words long, but it is 10 words too long. And it's supposed to be sad, but it's so bad, it made me laugh. So what Philostrate is describing here is kind of like what a modern audience might think of with a movie like The Room, which was a movie that we loved when I was in college, right? It's a movie that's meant to be taken seriously, but is got so many continuity errors and so many quotably bad dialogue and so much extreme situations happening that people just have a joyful time watching it. There, at one point, there were screenings of it where people would chant the lines and throw spoons at this projector screen at certain times because there was random spoons everywhere. So basically, if you think of that, like a movie that's so bad it's good, that's what Philostrate is arguing for. But he's not quite pitching it here, right? He's not quite saying that it's going to be good because it's so bad. It's just it's so bad. Theseus says, "What are they that do play it? Hard-handed men that work in Athens here, which never labored in their minds till now, and now have toiled their unbreathed memories with this same play against your nuptial." So Philostrate says, they are hard workers, but they don't really use their brains much until this play, and it shows. Theseus says, "And we will hear it." So he's like, I will hear that play, right? "No, my noble lord, it is not for you. I have heard it over, and it is nothing in the world, unless you can find sport in their intents, extremely stretched and conned with cruel pain to do you service. I will hear this play. For never anything can be amiss when simpleness and duty tender it. Go, bring them in, and take your places, ladies." So Theseus is determined to hear this play. He's excited about how bad it might be. He's excited about how simple it is. And Philostrate's like, "I warned you, buddy. But okay, here comes the play." So while the play gets ready, and usually at this time, the mechanicals will be getting ready to get in place, like Philostrate has to go get them and everything. We get a little sidebar here before we get into the play within a play. Hippolytus says, "I love not to see wretchedness o'ercharged, and duty in his service perishing." So she doesn't want to see people who are trying their best but have taken on too much be a failure. "Why, gentle sweet, you shall see no such thing. He," meaning Philostrate, "says they can do nothing in this kind. The kinder we to give them thanks for nothingness." That's a great follow-up line, right? You see nothing and kind, kinder and nothing. "Our sport shall be to take what they mistake, and what poor duty cannot do, noble respect takes it in might, not merit. Where I have come, great clerks have purposed to greet me with premeditated welcomes, where I have seen them shiver and look pale, make periods in the midst of sentences, throttle their practiced accent in their fears, and in conclusion dumbly have broke off, not paying me a welcome. Trust me, sweet, out of this silence yet I picked a welcome, and in the modesty of fearful duty I read as much as from the rattling tongue of saucy and audacious eloquence. Love, therefore, and tongue-tied simplicity, and least speak most to my capacity." So what he's saying there is, in his opinion, it's the effort that counts, not the final product. People get nervous in front of royals. People get nervous talking into a camera. I'd like to think I'm a little more eloquent in everyday life teaching in front of a classroom than I am on camera here. When I go back and watch these, I struggle with the number of ums that I produce, or the times I say so or right or whatever it might be. Almost did it there. Point being, people get nervous around Theseus. They're not quite themselves. And he has a good attitude about it. He said, we're going to see what they do and appreciate what they have for us. I will take the most out of it, no matter what it is. Philostrate comes back in and says, so please your grace, the prologue is addressed. Let him approach. So here we have a little callback, or maybe not a callback, but something that was previewed, which was that we were going to have a bunch of prologues in this play. We were going to make sure people knew some information about the play, the we being the mechanicals, know some information about Pyramus and Thisbe, the play, before the play begins. So Peter Quince, the director, comes out as the prologue and says, if we offend, it is with our good will, that you should think we come not to offend, but with good will, to show our simple skill. That is the true beginning of our end. Consider, then, we come but in despite. We do not come as minding to connect you. Our true intent is all for your delight. We are not here, that you should hear, repent you. The actors are at hand, and by their show you shall know all that you are like to know. Now, if you were like, how come this guy can't read this thing? I was doing that on purpose. A better actor, or someone who's actually acting especially, would do a much better job with that. That should be very, very funny, because the prologue has all these contradictions in it. If we offend, it is with our goodwill. So if we offend you, it is our goodwill, like we meant to. Like, hey, if you find any of this offensive, just know I meant it. That's a wild thing to say to the royal court. But Quince tries to cover it and says that you should think we come not to offend, but with goodwill. And there's more and more and more of it. And there's all these pauses and it's choppy. So basically what Shakespeare has set up is Theseus being like, you have no idea, Hippolyta, how many terrible speeches I've heard. I can get through this. And then this very first speech leaves everyone like, what the heck? Like, oh my gosh. And even though the play has started, the audience is yelling out at the actors, and or at least for the audience to hear. Theseus says, this fellow doth stand, sorry, no, my goodness. This fellow doth not stand upon points. So that would be horseback riding. I think that's a horseback riding thing. But basically doesn't pay attention to details. He hath rid his prologue like a rough colt. He knows not the stop. A good moral, my lord, it is not enough to speak, but to speak true. Indeed, he hath played on his prologue like a child on a recorder, a sound, but not in government. So if you've ever heard kids when they're learning to play the recorder, usually like the first instrument a lot of kids pick up, it's, recorder, I believe, can sound beautiful in the right hands. But when a little kid is learning to play it, it tends to be, stereotypically jarring. And that's what Hippolyta compares this speech to. His speech was like a tangled chain, nothing impaired, but all disordered. Who is next? So he's like, oh, what happens next? So now we have the characters enter, the mechanicals enter as characters. So usually I don't talk about costumes because that changes from play to play, but the costumes here are pretty important. So you have Pyramus, who is dressed like the hero. That'd be bottom. Right? Then you have Flute playing Thisbe, who is dressed as a woman. And then you have Starveling. Yep, Starveling as the moon. So they'll be having a lantern and a bush of thorns and maybe look like a giant, sphere, like a giant ball on stage. Then you have Snug, who is the lion, and Snout is the wall. And if you are directing this play correctly, then Snout should get a big laugh at the reveal, because the wall costume is usually, these are not meant to be good costumes, right? They're throwing this together last minute. The wall costume is usually someone in a giant bed sheet that might have like bricks drawn onto it or something. And you don't know they're a wall until they raise their arms up and you realize that they're a wall, which is a very funny thing to be in a play. Okay. So Quince, as the prologue says, gentles, perchance you wonder at this show, but wonder on till truth makes all things plain. This man is Pyramus, if you would know. This beauteous lady, Thisbe, is certain. This man with lime and rough cast doth present wall, that vile wall which these lovers, that vile wall which did these lovers sunder, And through walls chink, poor souls, they are content to whisper, at the which let no man wonder. So there's a lot of description of the wall here because the wall is bad, and that's what Quince is saying. It's a bad wall, but there's a hole in it, right? There's an opening in the wall, like between the fingers or something. Is what will be demonstrated when they perform the play, that the lovers are able to whisper. And then Quince says, this man with lantern, dog, and bush of thorn presenteth moonshine. For if you will know, by moonshine did these lovers think no scorn to meet at Ninnis' tomb. There to woo. This grisly beast, which lion hight by name, the trusty Thisbe coming first by night did scare away, or rather did affright. And as she fled, her mantle she did fall. So mantle would be like a jacket or cloak. Did fall, which lion vile with bloody mouth did stain. Anon comes Pyramus, sweet youth and tall, and finds his trusty Thisbe's mantle slain, whereat with bloody blameful blade, he bravely broached his boiling bloody breast, and Thisbe, tarrying in mulberry shade, his dagger drew and died. For all the rest, let lie in moonshine wall and lovers twain at large discourse, while here they do remain. You might have noticed that prologue told you everything that's going to happen in the play. So just so I don't have to summarize it later as we actually watch it play out, because you're supposed to kind of get it here. Basically, Thisbe comes out on stage to meet Pyramus at Ninnis' tomb. Not Ninny's, that's the joke. Ninnis' tomb. And a lion is there, which scares Thisbe. And Thisbe runs off. The lion grabs her jacket, her mantle, and has blood on its mouth. And when it picks up the mantle and shakes it, blood gets on the mantle, and then the lion drops it and runs off. When Pyramus arrives, there is no Thisbe because she ran off because of, the lion. There's just Thisbe's jacket clearly showing an animal attacked it. And Pyramus then takes his own life. And Thisbe is horrified when she realizes what happens. We haven't been told what happens next exactly. That part hasn't been told, so I'll wait on that. But part of the joke here is that the prologue says way too much. It'd be like if at the beginning of Star Wars it says in a galaxy far, far away, and then just told you the whole plot of the movie before you watched it. The other joke is that Quince gets way too into it, right? You get this immeasurably fun alliteration in the Folger. It's line 155, whereat with bloody blameful blade, he bravely broached his boiling bloody breast. So you get a lot of B alliteration there. And, that's the climax of the play in many ways. And here Quince is just telling everyone what happens. But anyway, then I think Quince realizes the mistake and says, everyone else will, you'll figure it all out, runs off stage. Theseus says, I wonder if the lion be to speak. No wonder, my lord, one lion may when many asses do. So the asses there being the mechanicals, but obviously funny joke with bottom. Lion, Thisbe, moonshine, and prologue exit. So now we have Snout, who is the wall. In this same interlude, it doth befall that I, one Snout by name, present a wall. And such a wall as I would have you think that had in it a crannied hole or chink, through which the lovers, Pyramus and Thisbe, did whisper often, very secretly. This loam, this rough cast, and this stone doth show that I am the same wall. The truth is so. And this the cranny is, right and sinister, through which the fearful lovers are to whisper. So in that speech by the wall, we get these very obvious couplets, and they're all so funny. If you look back at it, you get doth befall, present a wall. So I am a wall, basically, is what that means. It's very funny with the costume. And there's a lot of other really great ones in there too, like the whisper and sinister. I really like stone doth show the truth is so. So it's like, how do I rhyme with that? It's like, I am telling you the truth. So that is usually an audience favorite monologue, the wall here. Theseus says, would you desire lime and hair to speak better? Those are things you'd use to build a wall, lime and hair. It is the wittiest partition that ever I heard discourse, my lord. It's like, that's the best wall I've ever heard talk. Smartest wall ever. Pyramus draws near the wall. Silence. So bottom enters as Pyramus, and he has this very ballad meter here, very heroic meter. But if you actually look at what he's saying, it's quite ridiculous. O grim-looked night, O night with hue so black, O night, whichever art when day is not. O night, alack, alack, alack. I fear my Thisbe's promise is forgot. And thou, O wall, O sweet, O lovely wall that standest between her father's ground and mine, thou wall, O sweet and lovely wall, show me thy chink to blink through with mine eye. So that's where the wall would open their hands. To which Bottom says, thanks, courteous wall. Jove shield thee well for this. It's like, God protect you, wall, for showing me where I could whisper. But what see I? No Thisbe do I see. O wicked wall, through whom I see no bliss. Cursed be thy stones for thus deceiving me. So then we went from, oh, sweet and lovely wall, like Pyramus is like, I love this wall, it's the greatest wall of all time, to hating the wall and like cursing it and wanting to tear it down. But Theseus interrupts and says, the wall, methinks, being sensible, should curse again. No, in truth, sir, he should not. Deceiving me is Thisbe's cue. She is to enter now, and I am to spy her through the wall. You shall see it will all fall pat, as I told you. Yonder she comes. So it's so funny because Bottom gets interrupted by Theseus, the ruler, and then Theseus is making a joke, and Bottom's like, no, you don't actually understand, and corrects Theseus. It says, you'll see what's going to happen in a little bit. So the sort of conventional behavior of actor and audience that we think of in modern theater certainly wasn't the case back in Shakespeare's time. They would boo plays off stage if they didn't think they were very good. So they were more rowdy. But here we see an example of that, and it seems very rowdy, this sort of back and forth. Enter Thisbe, flute. O wall, full often hast thou heard my moans for parting my fair Pyramus and me. My cherry lips have often kissed thy stones with lime and hair knit up in thee. A lot of people will say that's a bit of an innuendo, and I'll let you figure it out if you want to. Bottom is Pyramus says, I see a voice, which is funny. Now will I to the chink, to spy as I can, hear my Thisbe's face. Thisbe, my love, thou art my love, I think. Think what thou wilt, I am thy lover's grace, and like Lymander am I trusty still, and I like Helen till the fates me kill. So Lymander there is, I think, meant to be Leander. And Leander, if I'm not mistaken, is a very like Romeo-like character in Greek mythology who tries to swim across the Hellespont to get to his love, which is like a strait of water in the Aegean. He tries to swim across the Hellespont, doesn't make it, and drowns. So basically loving until death. And Flute says, as Thisbe, and I like Helen till the fates me kill. So probably Helen of Troy, which that's funnier than I realized looking at the note. Leander's love was Hero, not Helen. So one of the jokes here is that they're mixing up the characters that they're trying to reference in mythology. Not Shalaflus to Procrus was so true. So Caiaphas and Procreus, who are famous tragic lovers, but again mispronounced. As Shalaflus to Procrus, I to you. Oh, kiss me through the hole of this vile wall. I kiss the wall's hole, not your lips at all. Wilt thou at Ninny's tomb meet me straightway? Tide life, tide death, I come without delay. Bottom and Flute exit. So some funny lines in there as these two people stand on either side of someone holding their hand out like this, and they're here and here whispering sweet nothings to each other as this person in the middle is dressed as a wall. Okay. So they exit, and the wall says, thus have I, wall, my part discharged so, and being done, thus wall away doth go. Now is the wall down between the two neighbors. No remedy, my lord, when walls are so willful to hear without warning. This is the silliest stuff that ever I heard. The best in this kind are but shadows, and the worst are no worse if imagination amend them. It must be your imagination then, and not theirs. If we imagine no worse of them than they of themselves, they may pass for excellent men. Here come two noble beasts in, a man and a lion. So the interesting back and forth between Theseus and Hippolyta about the work of the audience, right? When you're an audience in a play, you have to suspend your disbelief. You have to imagine a little bit of what's happening. But you know who has to imagine more is the actors. And Hippolyta points out they're not doing much good imagining to make this work. So you're doing all the heavy lifting here if you think this is good. Enter Snug the Lion and Moonshine Starveling. You ladies, you whose gentle hearts do fear the smallest monstrous mouse that creeps on floor, may now perchance both quake and tremble here when lion rough and wildest rage doth roar. Then know that I, as Snug the joiner am, a lion fell, nor else no lion's dam. For if I should as lion come in strife into this place, 'twere pity on my life. So that prologue by the lion is like, hey, ladies, I know you're scared of like even a mouse. Just know I'm not actually a lion. I'm Snug the joiner. And this is very funny because the women in question are not fearful people. Hippolyta is an Amazonian warrior, and Hermia and Helena are both brave enough to run out into the woods, risking their own life, and also can throw hands if they need to, especially Hermia. So I don't think they're going to be scared of a mouse, but Snug is warning them that he's not a real lion. A very gentle beast and of a good conscience, the very best at a beast, my lord, that e'er I saw. This lion is very fox for his valor, true, and a goose for his discretion. Not so, my lord, for his valor cannot carry his discretion, and the fox carries the goose. His discretion, I am sure, cannot carry his valor, for the goose carries not the fox. It is well. Leave it to his discretion, and let us listen to the moon. So there's a little battle of wits there about geese and fox, but now we're going to listen to the moon. Starveling says, this lanthorn doth the horned moon present. He should have worn the horns on his head. He is no crescent, and his horns are invisible within the circumference. This lanthorn doth the horned moon present. Myself, the man in the moon, do seem to be. This is the greatest error of them all. The man should be put into the lanthorn. How else is it the man in the moon? He dares not come there for the candle, for you see it is already in snuff, meaning he's scared of the candle, scared of being burned. I'm aweary of this moon. Would he would change. It appears by his small light of discretion that he is in the wane, but yet in courtesy and all reason we must stay the time. Proceed, moon. All that I have to say is to tell you that the lanthorn is the moon, I the man in the moon, this thorn bush my thorn bush, and this dog my dog. Why all these should be in the lanthorn, for all these are in the moon. But silence, here comes Thisbe. So the joke with Moonshine is that Moonshine has a rather short line. They're dressed as a giant moon, right? Holding a bunch of props. They just want to get it done with and move on, but people keep interrupting them. So finally they're like, look, all I got to tell you is that I'm the moon, okay? You get it? Okay? Now we get to move on. Enter Thisbe. This is old Ninny's tomb. Where is my love? Snug as the lion, like roars behind. Thisbe runs off, dropping the mantle. The lion shakes it in their mouth and then continues to shake it as Demetrius says, well roared, lion. Well run, Thisbe. Well shown, moon. Truly, the moon shines with a good grace. The lion continues to shake the mantle. Well moused, lion. Enter Pyramus as bottom. And then came Pyramus. Lion exits, dropping the jacket. So the lion vanished. So now we have bottom entering as Pyramus and saying, sweet moon, I thank thee for thy sunny beams. Again, moonbeams are not sunny. They are moony. Whatever they are. But again, we see the mistakes in the lines for bottom. I thank thee, moon, for shining now so bright. For thy gracious golden glittering gleams, I trust to take of truest Thisbe's sight. So all this is like to the moon, like, oh, beautiful moon, oh, you're the best, blah, blah, blah. And then I trust that I will see my love. And he turns and goes, oh! Love is not there, right? We just see the mantle covered in blood. But stay, oh spite, but mark, poor knight, what dreadful dole is here. Sorrow is dole here, right? Eyes, do you see? How can it be? O dainty duck, O dear, thy mantle good, what stained with blood? Approach, ye furies fell, O fates, come, come, cut thread and thrum, quail, crush, conclude, and quell. So what Pyramus has deduced is that Thisbe must be dead, so he is calling on the fates for him to take his own life. If you've ever seen Disney's Hercules, you know those old women who like cut the thread. He's referencing in mythology those fates who could cut the thread of life. This passion in the death of a dear friend would go near to make a man look sad. Would go near to make a man look sad. That's a very funny line because what Theseus is saying is the passion on stage and the death of a good friend would almost make you feel sad. That's how little sorrow you feel for the way that Bottom is acting as Pyramus. That if you lost a dear friend, you still wouldn't be sad because you're watching this, and it's like anti-sorrow because of his delivery style. Beshrew my heart, but I pity the man, but Hippolyta pities him. Oh, wherefore, nature, didst thou lions frame? Since lion vile hath here deflowered my dear, which is, no, which was the fairest dame that lived, that loved, that liked, that looked with cheer. Come, tears confound, out sword, and wound the pap of Pyramus. Pap being like chest, breast. Aye, that left pap where the heart doth hop. Which is funny because he's like, I'm gonna stab myself with this. I gotta which where's the hearty? Oh, the left, right? The left one where the heart doth hop. Thus die I, thus. And he stabbed himself, right? So he stabs himself and then says, thus die I, thus. Now am I dead, which is a hilarious thing to say. It's almost like Shakespeare spoofing on his own death scenes, where it's just in stage stretches, like they fight, he dies. And the character is usually like, I am slain, right? But it's less dramatic than that. It's, now I am dead. Now am I fled. My soul is in the sky. Tongue, lose thy light. Moon, take thy flight. And Moonshine runs off stage. Now die. Very funny. And there's a lot of ways you can perform it. When we've done it in the past, and I've directed it, Bottom, who had the fakest looking cardboard sword you could make in 30 seconds, uses the sword every time he says die. So he says, I am dead, and then continues to monologue because Bottom just loves to talk, and continues to ham up the death scene more and more and more. Demetrius says, no die, but an ace for him, for he is but one. Less than an ace man, for he is dead. He is nothing. And the funniest line after this is Theseus saying, with the help of a surgeon, he might yet recover, and yet prove an ass. So this the most dramatic death scene of all time, and saying, like, if you got the right surgeon, he could recover and prove that he is an ass. How chance Moonshine is gone before Thisbe comes back and finds her lover? She will find him by starlight. Enter Thisbe. Here she comes, and her passion ends the play. Methinks she should not use a long one for such a Pyramus. I hope she will be brief, which is Hippolyta saying, like, let's move it along. This is taking a long time. A mote will turn the balance, which Pyramus, which Thisbe is the better for a man. God warn us, she for a woman. God bless us. She hath spied him already with those sweet eyes, and thus she means vidilect. Guessing Italian, which means to wit as follows. Flute, as Thisbe says, asleep, my love, referring to Bottom's body on the stage, Pyramus's body. What, dead, my dove? O Pyramus, arise! Speak, quite dumb? Dead. A tomb must cover thy sweet eyes. These lily lips, this cherry nose, these yellow cowslip cheeks are gone. Lovers make moan. His eyes were green as leeks. O sisters three, come, come to me. With hands as pale as milk, lay them in gore, since you have shore with shears his thread of silk. So that's again referencing the fates. Tongue, not a word. Come, trusty sword. Come, blade and breast imbrue. So Thisbe stabs herself. And farewell, friends. Thus Thisbe ends. Adieu, adieu, adieu. And Thisbe falls down dead next to Pyramus. I've mentioned in past live streams, this play was written right around the time Romeo and Juliet was written. So it's almost like the comedic Romeo and Juliet. Now, Thisbe's lines are a little different than Pyramus's lines and their death scenes. Thisbe's are much better, quite frankly, partly because they're shorter, but they're just less ridiculous. That doesn't mean you can't play them ridiculously. Some of the biggest laughs I've ever gotten as a director were from actors who absolutely crushed the Thisbe role, especially at this particular moment. You could do a lot of funny things with it, especially with costuming and the props that you have to work with. But you can also, and I know there's productions out there who have done this, who play it very seriously, and people cry at it. They're laughing their head off at what Bottom's done, and then they're hit with some real, genuine sorrow because they are kind of beautiful lines. So a lot of room for interpretation if you're performing or directing it. Theseus says, Moonshine and Lion are left to bury the dead. I and Wall too. Here Bottom pounce or jumps up when he says Wall can also bury the dead. He says, no, I assure you the wall is down that parted their fathers. Will it please you to see the epilogue or to hear a Bergamask dance between the two of our company? So it was very funny because he was dead on stage. Now he jumps up. He's like, oh, no, the wall's down, right? The wall's down. Do you want to hear the rest of it, like the epilogue, something after, or like we could do a dance if you wanted that? Which is just a lot of energy to bring after the most dramatic death scene of all time. Before we move on, now that we're done with the play within a play, I want to talk about just real quickly. I can't remember which scholar it was, but I read someone pointing out that what we see here with Pyramus and Thisbe demonstrates the danger of nature and the danger of not interpreting things correctly. And it can be life or death. And what we see played out with Pyramus and Thisbe is really what could have happened with Hermia. The play begins with life and death stakes, and it ends with laughing at life and death stakes. But in every joke, there's a kernel of truth. The woods were dangerous. Hermia dreamed that a creature was killing her. And the mistaken identity led to physical violence and threats of killing each other. And were it not for the intervening of Oberon and Puck, it could have ended much, much worse. Now, had they not ever intervened to begin with, it could have also never gotten much worse. But it shows that we've teetered on tragedy here. And you want your audience to remember that. Shakespeare's really good at that. His comedies always have a bit of tragedy lurking in the background, and most of his tragedies have some very comedic moments in them as well. It's one of the things that makes him a great writer. Okay. So anyway, Bottom says they could do the Bergamask. And Theseus says, no epilogue, I pray you. For your play needs no excuse, never excuse, for when the players are all dead, there need none to be blamed. So everyone who was in the play is dead, so you don't need to blame anyone. Marry, if he that writ it had played Pyramus and hanged himself in Thisbe's garter, it would have been a fine tragedy. And so it is truly and very notably discharged. But come, your Bergamask, let your epilogue alone. So he's like, if the person who wrote the play had been in it and, died, with the joke that he makes there, then it would have been a tragedy. But as is, it's fine. Let's have the dance, though. So they all start dancing. And then Theseus says, the iron tongue of midnight hath told 12. So it's midnight. Lovers, to bed. 'Tis almost fairy time. Which fairy time there, time between midnight and dawn is what that refers to. And of course, very interesting in this play with lots of fairies. I fear we shall outsleep the coming morn as much we this night have overwatched. So we stayed up so late, we might sleep past dawn. This palpable gross play hath well beguiled the heavy gate of night. Sweet friends, to bed! A fortnight hold we this solemnity in nightly revels and new jollity. So fortnight meaning 2 weeks, solemnity meaning celebration, revels, joy, jollity, joy, right? So they're going to celebrate for 2 weeks after this wedding. And everyone goes off And the play could end there, but Robin, Puck, enters and says, "Now the hungry lion roars, and the wolf behowls the moon, whilst the heavy ploughman snores, all with weary tasks fordone. Now the wasted brands do glow, whilst the screech owl, screeching loud, puts the wretch that lies in woe in remembrance of a shroud. Now it is the time of night, that the graves all gaping wide, every one lets forth his sprite in the church-way paths to glide. And we fairies, that do run by triple Hecate's team from the presence of the sun, following darkness like a dream, now are frolic. Not a mouse shall disturb this hallowed house. I am sent with broom before to sweep the dust behind the door." It's a famous monologue. It'd be a great way to end the play, but Shakespeare has an even better one in a couple of lines here for Puck. But it's almost got a bit of a bait and switch. It's very atmospheric. It's very scary. It's very very rhythmically interesting. It's very trochaic as well. It starts with a bunch of now, now, now. And we see wolf howling at the moon, the hungry lion, referencing back the play that we just watched on stage. Screech owls remembering the dead while the graves open up, letting their spirits out to prowl churchway paths. And the fairies that run by triple Hecate. The goddess Hecate had three forms: Luna, the moon in the sky, Diana on earth, and Proserpina in the underworld, which I'm guessing is the Roman version of Persephone. Right, oftentimes Hecate is thought of as being the goddess of the witches as well. So all this is very scary. And we get the mention of a dream, and no one shall disturb this hallowed house. Theaters are sometimes called houses. You say all quiet in the house, where the audience is known as the house, the big opening space of the theater. And then you get this little cute line: "I am sent with broom before to sweep the dust behind the door." It's like, oh, I'm here to just sweep up the dust behind the door. Don't worry about it. So it's like the potential evilness of Puck creeps out for a second, and then it's like, I'm just actually here to sweep. Don't worry about it. The other fairies enter. Oberon says, "Through the house give glimmering light by the dead and drowsy fire. Every elf and fairy sprite hop as light as bird from briar, and this ditty after me sing and dance it trippingly. First," so Titania, "first rehearse your song by rote, to each word a warbling note. Hand in hand with fairy grace will we sing and bless this place." So they have a dance now, the fairies do, and theirs is a dance of blessing. They are here to bless the house, to bless the marriage beds of the couples. Oberon leads in the dance and says, "Now, until the break of day, so until dawn, through this house each fairy stay. To the best bride bed will we, which by us shall blessed be. And the issue there create ever shall be fortunate. So shall all the couples three ever true and loving be, and the blots of nature's hand shall not in their issue stand." So the blots of nature's hand would be deformities will not appear. Oh gosh, that is what I thought it meant. Issue is offspring. So they're blessing the marriage bed so they don't have children that have deformities. I do not like that. Oberon, I do not like that at all. But I will point out that childbirth was very dangerous, still can be dangerous. It was very, very dangerous at this time. Children oftentimes died very young. Infant morbidity rates were incredibly high back then from disease and complications. So the blessing of the marriage bed to have healthy children here, it feels very like ableist and wrong, and it kind of is. I'm not going to make an excuse for it, what he says there, but I do see where you would want health, and they don't necessarily know what health looks like the same way that we do. That the fairies are there to make sure they have happy marriages and healthy children, which who doesn't want that? Never mole, hair lip, nor scar, nor mark prodigious, such as are despised in nativity, shall upon their children be. With this field, so they'll never go out in the sun, I guess. Sorry. With this field do consecrate every fairy, take his gate, And each several chamber blessed through this place with sweet peace, and the owner of it blessed ever shall in safety rest. Trip away, make no stay, meet me all by break of day. So he sends the fairies out to bless the couples and says meet by daylight. And now we get the final line of the play, one of the most famous final lines in any play ever. Amazing monologue by Puck. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. And as I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long. Else the Puck a liar call. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. So, this amazing final monologue is Puck saying, if we shadows, and I talked in a previous video about how interesting it is that the fairies are called shadows, and it's a word that comes up a lot in this play. But if we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended. So think just this one thought and it'll make it all better. That you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. I'm just going off the top of the dome here. Think about this all is better. That you have but slumbered here while these visions. I got to trust myself. I had it. I've never played Puck, but I've heard it a lot. That you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. So the only thing you need to think to make everything better is that you were asleep. And all of this was just visions. And this weak and idle theme that you just watched on play or on stage, no more yielding but a dream. This was all just a dream. And we don't need to go through every single line of it here, but a couple other interesting things here is Puck is like, I'm honest, but if this is unearned luck, right? Like if we didn't earn this sort of thing here, to escape criticism, the serpent's tongue, we will make it better before long because I don't want to be called a liar. And then he says, so good night unto you all. Give me your hands, meaning applause if we be friends. And Robin shall restore amends. I'll fix everything. So if there's any mistakes, I'll fix them. Which is funny because Puck loves mistakes. Puck probably made the mistakes. But Puck can also fix them. And isn't that the beauty of comedy? Mistakes that can be fixed. When they're irreversible, they're not quite so funny. It's sort of that if you see your friend slip and fall down, you don't laugh till you know they're okay. That distance required in tragedy to make it comedic. And it's an amazing ending delivered right to the audience. And Puck's an amazing character that any actor would, I think, love to play. And what a great way to end this play. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get to them. Also, don't forget to vote on the upcoming play that we're going to do next. Right now, Hamlet and Antigone are tied. So no cost to join the free membership Patreon. You can vote on the next play, and that'll be open for a few more days. And don't forget to pick up some field notes. If you're interested in those, would really appreciate it. And if anything in this series offended you, I'll do my best to make it better. But in the meantime, just imagine that all of this was a dream. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next play. Happy reading.